Hi, you are in the ADU as homeownership panel. If you did not mean to come here, there is still time to go to the cowbell room and talk about advocacy. We did a quick show of hands at the beginning, but like how many of you are already familiar with selling ADUs separately to some extent? Yeah, so you kind of have read some stuff, you know some stuff, you're dangerous. This is probably the most educated subject-specific panel I've ever gotten to be on. And so I'm gonna learn a bunch. It's really exciting. I'm gonna introduce everybody. I'm gonna give you a little narrative. Turn off your phones. Larry, we're gonna send you right back to Calistoga. And I call out people by name. If I punish people who sit in the back by making them sit in the front, you know, all that kind of stuff. All right, so we're gonna introduce each panelist, talk about what they're gonna go through. Then they're each gonna have like 10 minutes to kind of give a big drop of information on their subject specifically, but then you're gonna be bursting with questions. You're gonna be paroxysms of ADU joy, and throughout the whole thing, just write down your questions. We have extra note cards that Teresa can bring you if you need one. Flag her now, because you're gonna have questions and we're not gonna answer them unless you write them down and then, you know, make sure somebody sees it and runs it up to me. Cool. So the panel composes of some real experts. We're gonna start with who I think of as the optimists, like the things that are real, the glass half full. Scott Johnson from the center formerly known as the ADU, the Napa-Sonoma ADU Center, and now known as the ADU Center, has helped literally hundreds of homeowners in these jurisdictions plan their projects, think about the reality of an ADU on their lot, which is sometimes very valid, sometimes pretty tough. And so he knows when it's possible. He knows when the glass is half full, and you're not going to talk about the half empty, right? Okay. And then he could talk a little bit about, you know, teeing us up for the reality of turning. Do you guys know 1 in 5 new residential construction permits are now ADU permits? And according to the numbers that we're starting to see from this year, it's 1 in 4 in California. And so it's like this tiny little fringe part of the movement. Turns out we're building a lot of these bad boys. And so he's gonna tee us up there, right? Then we're gonna go to Sylvia Aguilar from the Casita Coalition. Without Casita Coalition, we wouldn't have any of these amazing rules at the state level. And she is one of the masterminds behind the separate sale of ADUs. I'm not going to use the word condo very much because condo scares people and makes them think of wall-in, no, separate new starter home through ADUs. And so she's gonna tell us everything that's possible if your jurisdiction's opt in, right? All right, then we're gonna have who I'm calling the realists. You know, sometimes it's all dreams and joy of ADUs until you realize you got to pay for one. And so Lindsay Moon is a financial expert, mortgage broker, very creative lender, which is always my favorite quality in a lender. And she's going to talk through some of the realities of financing ADUs, and specifically the roadblocks that we run into around these separate sale of, not calling them condos. Then we've got Martin Hirsch, an attorney, local boy, who's going to be able to talk to you about all the things that go wrong when you get into contracts with people, or the things that go right if you hire a really talented lawyer. You know, anybody, but he happens to be here. And then we're gonna go into what I'm calling like Xanadu, the dream is real. This is Tom Tran. He's come all the way up from San Jose, the first jurisdiction to adopt the separate sale of ADUs in California. This guy made the first ADU condo in California with his team at Alpha X and Apex Homes. So it's real. It's important after the cynics that you get kind of like that. It can happen in here, even in California. And then booming over the speaker, Julie, if you could hear me say something, but the Wizard of Oz is going to come in from Austin, Texas. And she's a condo attorney who's been doing this for years. She's done thousands of these units. And so that's what it can look like. Yeah, I love it. So that's what it can look, oh, there she is. What it can look like if we do it right? If we adopt the rules, this could be just as good as in Austin. We could have thousands of these, and each one is a starter home that lets somebody get in on that property ladder at 30% less than they would otherwise. That's why I'm excited. Without further ado, Scott Johnson.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. All right. I'm only at 12 minutes. People who know me know I talk for far longer than that, so I'm going to try and be as fast as possible. Is anyone here personally considering an ADU? Okay. ADU, I saw some more hands. Great. Love to see it. So it's important to sort of level set that the ADU laws that got passed in 2016, 2020, and the ones that have come since were game changing for housing in California. It really set kind of a standard basis for everybody, every city, every county in the state, which created a market for architects, builders, financiers, everybody to actually get into the space and do something with it. That we have 20% of the new homes being built in California are ADUs it's been 6 years since the 2020 law got passed. That is staggering, and it's getting more every year. As the laws have been changing, because they do change every year, what we're seeing is something that I haven't seen in my many years in these sort of planning businesses, that we're not seeing opportunities being closed off. We're seeing more opportunities being added. So what started as a fairly straightforward, okay, you can have one ADU, you can have a junior ADU, they can be of this size for single family owned properties. What we're now seeing is a real diversity of what's possible. It makes the law a little bit more baroque and a little bit hard to understand at first read, but the state legislature, and with the work of the Casita Coalition and others, they have done a really great job of saying, what part of the segment have we missed? What kind of properties have we missed? What kind of projects have we missed with the current laws? And what can we add to make these things possible? Separate sale is one of those things. Separate sale allows for, I don't want to steal your thunder, a lot of different kind of financing and multi-generational wealth, where multi-generational wealth has not yet been built. For families that have not been able to get into that system, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity there if the cities and counties adopt it. So that's kind of the situation that we find ourselves in, is that ADUs, I always say this, ADUs have never been easier to build in my lifetime than they are today. They're not easy, but they've never been easier. I mean, when I kind of got started in this, it was rare if a property could actually have an ADU put on it. And now that is the norm. More than one, possibly up to 4, depending on what your property is. And where we see the challenges is not really with the ADU laws themselves. We're seeing them in other places: availability of financing, timelines. But the big one, and the reason that I run the ADU center, is that homeowners don't know how to get started. They're not developers. Many of them have never done a remodel before, much less build a home in California, which is a complex, expensive, stressful project if you've never done it. And so while we have 20% of the new homes in California, maybe 25% in California being ADUs, that could have been 50%. But homeowners don't know where to start. So that's what we do at the ADU Center, and we work in Napa and Marin, and we have a sister organization in the South Bay in San Mateo County. All of our resources are online, available to anybody, anywhere. They are free. We do one-on-ones with people in Napa and Marin, and we have now opened that up to other areas for a charge, because we got to pay our bills. But what we focus on is homeowners who want to build an ADU or think they might want to build an ADU, but don't know what to do, don't know who to talk to, don't know what the rules are, don't know what they should be thinking about. Because back post-Tubbs fire, the community foundations of Sonoma County and Napa got together and said, we want to help with housing, what do we do? ADUs had just become viable, and they talked to lots of folks, builders and planners and lots of homeowners who either wanted to build one or had built one. And the response that we got back was almost unanimous, was the hardest part is starting. There's nobody to help. There's nobody to explain the rules. We've never done this. It's a lot of money. So we just wait. And in the 6 years that we've been open, I've talked to well over 1,000 homeowners now across 3 counties. And I can't tell you, it's almost like a bingo card when they come in and say, I've been wanting to do this for years, but I didn't know how to get started. Everybody in this room, everybody in the room next door, if you're involved in housing, if you're a citizen who cares about your community, you're here. One of the things that still needs a lot of work is homeowners need help to start. They need education. They need a framework. And so anything that helps serve that need, people who are pre-construction, who are thinking about it, who are maybe talking to their elderly parents or their adult kids who can't find their own places to live. If there are resources, whether those are city or nonprofit or some other, helping them get started and understand What is possible with separate sale? What is possible with financing? What is possible with building 2 or 3 ADUs on your property? That allows them to feel confident, move forward, look for financing, get their project started, and to me, most importantly, not get $50,000 into something and then realize, oh wait, this isn't going to work, or I don't have enough money, or I didn't know about the creek setback, and now I have to go back and spend a ton of money to redesign my whole plan. So the very beginning, how the project starts, how to help people get up and move is, I think, a still underserved part of the ADU world. And there are a lot of folks who can help with that. I see, Napa County did their affordable ADU loan, which got a huge number of people off the bench and into the ADU world. Healdsburg does I think it's monthly, they've got 3 of their department heads who sit and hold a meeting on a regular schedule for homeowners to come and just ask them questions. That is massive for not that much, hours of people working. Having that accessibility for homeowners who are interested really makes a difference. I'm good. Okay. So I'll give you the cliffiest of cliff notes. If you're thinking about an ADU, you're knowing someone who wants to build an ADU, what you can do at the start is get a budget, talk to finance, figure out what's possible from the money side. If you're on septic, talk to your septic agency, because that's going to be the very, very first thing that you need to solve. Do your research. Look for all the ADU resources that weren't there 6 years ago that are there now. Our websites, other websites, How to ADU at Ryan. There's a tremendous amount of good information out there, and starting to get that framework of how this stuff works will make everything go easier for the rest of the project. I think additional resources as you kind of get the basics of, oh, I understand setbacks. I've actually read, I've read my city's code. I understand what I have to do. I know these 3 departments that I'm going to have to talk to. HCD and the Casita Coalition have a lot of resources for what I call ADUs 201. When you're kind of in it, you know a lot of the basics. There's a lot of details that become really important, and understanding where to find those resources, what questions to ask. That's
HCD stands for.
What HCD stands for. Thank you, Ryan. Housing and Community Development Department of California, the state housing agency. They've got a great website for ADUs and a portal for homeowners. If they're having an issue or they have a question, you can actually ask the state department themselves. So there's a huge amount of resources out there now that weren't there 6 years ago, weren't there 5 years ago. There's a lot of financing that wasn't out there. So we are on this rapid upward climb of what's possible in ADUs and help for homeowners and making that system work. And we can only do better.
The momentum. All right. Sylvia. Yeah. And where do we go from here, Sylvia? Sure. Stephanie, do you have slides for Sylvia? Oh, sorry. Yeah, she's got the clicker. We're working it out in live, guys. This is how ADU feasibility gets done. It's an iterative process. Thank you. A big hand for the Generation Housing team. They do such a wonderful job putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for that incredible presentation. I know I'm excited. And I just wanted to also thank Ryan, who's just been critical as I've become part of Casita Coalition last year. And as we've talked about in the main stage and here, I'm going to talk about AB 1033. Next slide, please. So AB 1033 became effective on January 1st. And as we've heard by now, with the passage of AB 1033, local cities and counties are authorized to adopt a local ordinance that allows the separate sale of the ADU from the primary residence as condos. Within this framework established by AB 1033, local agencies may craft their own ordinances. And as we've heard Jen mention and Ryan, San Jose is the first city to adopt an ADU condo ordinance. And we're so excited to hear from Tommy Tran, who's here in the flesh, who's going to tell us how he made that happen. So with all of these great things that can happen with AB 1033, we have to remember that we have to get more cities to opt in, and that is what the work of Casita Coalition is focusing on. So this is a slide that just represents how expensive California homes are. So I'll skip that, and I'll make these available to everybody after the presentation. So again, we all know this, but just to reiterate, in more than 113 California cities, starter homes cost $100 million or more, and more cities will get added to this list every year. So what does AB 1033 do? Again, we've gone over this, so I won't delve into it too much, but I just wanted to note that existing law already allowed nonprofits to do this. So when AB 1033 came along, it now provides homeowners with the same opportunities. And it also just adds ADUs as to the many types of structures that can be sold as condominiums under current Davis-Sterling rules. So we think AB 1033 is an extraordinary opportunity because it provides enhanced flexibility for families. We've discussed some of the ways that families could take advantage of this to sort of meet the needs of their home, of their families. We've got homeowners who want to convert an ADU to a condo to sell it to their adult child so they can start on the dream of home ownership and building wealth. You have senior citizens and elders who are nearing retirement and want to downsize, and they don't need a big home with 2 or 3 floors. Building an ADU is a great opportunity for them to downsize, to get a 1-level unit that fits their current needs, and the main house can be rented for funds to go to retirement. There's any number of ways that we can use ADUs through the lifetime of generations of families, and that's why we're so excited about their potential. Here again is just another example of a woman in Portland, Oregon, who took the time and the investment to build an ADU, and now she's living mortgage-free with an HOA monthly fee and a perfect home garden and patio for her older years. This speaks to me. I'm in the season of my life where I'm supporting my parents and my in-laws, and so we're actively considering doing an ADU for my mother-in-law. So as Scott mentioned, here are some of the professionals required to do an ADU project. He mentioned a budget analyst, an attorney, which is highly recommended, a licensed land surveyor, and a title company. So here we get in the nitty gritty, and I'm going to glide over that because we have 2 lawyers on the panel today. So no need to get into this, but we like to include this because we don't know where people are at in their ADU journey. You have people who are considering it and people who are more knowledgeable. So we just like to provide this just in case. This is just an overview of a basic condo legal structure. And then we have the 3 basic components of a condo project. So we're further breaking it down to make it more easy for people who don't know much about it to understand. And here again is just a small paragraph or 2 about subdivision mapping laws. So really exciting. So I'll go over these, I'll pass by these, but again, we'll provide these slides for anybody who's interested.
And if you want more details for any of these things and they don't come up in the law, just write it down. We can come back in the Q&A. Otherwise, yeah.
Condominium plan. So this is really the how-to and the understanding of all of these. And as we discussed, the other considerations are lender and bank approval and financing, which is why we're so excited to hear from Lindsay Moon, because at Casita Coalition, financing is a huge barrier. And so we've invested a lot of time and resources to discover how we can make ADUs feasible for most people. And so this is the exciting part, not the financing, because that's Lindsay's, but I'm going to talk about who has currently opted in. So in the South Bay, we've got San Jose and Santa Cruz. We got pretty good representation in SoCal. Also in the East Bay, Contra Costa County. And just a couple of weeks, we've got Culver City added to the mix. So I'm from the East Bay, and I'm actively working to get some of the cities there, including Oakland, to opt in. So that's where you come in. How can you work in each of your cities and in the county as a whole to get your local legislators to opt in? That's what we're going to talk about next. So this is just briefly what happens when a city or county opts in. So it's really simple. They just vote to draft and approve the change to the local ADU ordinance by removing the ban on separate sale and adding the process steps from the state law. And then so that we know that it happened, there needs to be an informational campaign to get it out to the constituents and the public that they've opted in. So now here's what you can do. Jen touched on this, that you need to meet with your mayor, your district representative. You can send an email if you don't want to go in person. You can find out when the city council might be discussing it, or you could just say you want to make a public comment at any city council meeting. You can find out, did your state senator or assembly member vote for AB 1033? You know, educating yourself to see where your representatives stand on this is a good first step. And then once you know if they support it or not, then you can start to sort of build the case to encourage them to opt in. So one of the things that Casita Coalition has done is we've done the hard work for you. We have email templates where you don't even have to draft it yourself. We have talking points where we list common objections so that you can, you know, have a ready answer for people who bring up concerns. Jen also mentioned go to community meetings. We have slide decks for public meetings. So if you want to go to any community event, we will provide materials for you that you can cater to and edit to whatever event you're attending. We have info sheets. We have a guidance memo that we did with Ruben, Junius, and Rose. So all that to say, we have so many resources and we want you to take advantage of it. Lastly, I'm going to shout out another incredible resource, which is the Casita Academy. We have classes and webinars and cohorts where, depending on how deep you want to go into all of this ADU and middle housing, we have something for you. We have a class on AB 1033. We have ADU basics and ADU principles. We have a class on AB 2533, which allows people to legalize their previously unpermitted ADUs. So if you have interest in that, I have brochures. Come up to me after and I'll give them to you. And check us out at casitacoalition.org and join our coalition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you guys do nonprofit scholarships for the academy too? So
scholarships all the time. So you can apply if you're unable to afford the
cookies here. Good. All right, Lindsay Moon, let's talk money. Now that we're all excited.
The money, yes. Let's see. Oh, there's Scott. There's one more. Okay, that's me, Lindsay Moon, Pro Mortgage. I'm an independent mortgage officer. I'm also a former general contractor, so I know construction very well, and I still do a little building on the side. Let me jump into the next one here. Okay. I came up with my own little acronym for ADUs. Amazing, dependable, uber cool. I don't think I need to explain that to anybody here in this room. Everyone seems pretty on board. But it really begins with the feasibility. Talking to someone like Scott about what you're able to do, but then also what is your feasibility for financing? What is my purchase power, so to speak? So I'm often working with people well in advance of them actually being ready for the financing, just so that they get that clear picture. They know what they can afford, and then they can start that next progression of plans and permit. I've had people go all the way to not reach out to me and go like plans, permit, ready to go, and then not be able to get the financing. I had one woman in San Diego who had spent tens of thousands of dollars on pre-construction only to find out that she wasn't able to get the financing. So definitely have that conversation first. With that, I can do a soft pull on credit, which is really important because a soft pull gives me what I need to get your pre-approval, but it doesn't disturb your credit. And that is a huge thing for people. There are a lot of people that have had major credit issues, especially as of late, and we don't want to disturb that until you're actually ready for the financing. So like if you're talking to any mortgage officer, they should be able to do a soft pull initially, and that gives you, what is needed again for pre-approval. A lot of people ask me if now is a good time, and I like to say it is if it's good for you. Construction costs are only going to go up, hopefully not, but that's the way that things are going. So if it makes sense for you, that's my answer is, if it works for you, it's always a good time. I do recommend using an ADU company, always having a contingency. I'm kind of going into things that I guess are not really financing, so I'm going to blow through that. But I think what's most important is there are a lot of different financing options out there. We talked about pre-approval. You really want to know what your purchase power is. Just like if you are buying a new home, refinancing, you need to know what your abilities are. It's going to be, again, well before you're actually ready to start construction. Here's a list of kind of the general types of ADU loans that exist out there. If you're already a homeowner, you can look at refinancing, pulling cash out if you have equity. If you do have a low primary mortgage, you're then going to want to look at a secondary mortgage option. So if you don't already own a property and you're thinking of buying a property, let's say that does not have an ADU, but you want to, there are even loans out there to help you, purchase the home. Oh no, how do I go back? Purchase the home as well as build your ADU. Then there is this large category of second mortgages. Second mortgages are like HELOCs, HELoans, tapping into that existing equity without having to touch your primary mortgage. There are a lot of different options out there. They're all proprietary based on banks and lenders. So it's a really good idea to work with an independent like myself who's able to shop and look at all of these different loan products, present you with options. And a little shout out to being an independent mortgage broker. We are not middle people. You're going to always work with a mortgage officer with financing, but what's important is an independent. I don't work for a bank or lender. I work for my clients, and I want my clients for life. I monitor everyone's mortgage. I'll let you know when it makes sense to refi, but I'm looking at wholesale pricing from all these different banks and lenders and looking at all of these different products and presenting you with options. So it's just, I think a lot of people don't understand that you are going to always work with a mortgage officer. But if you go into, like a big bank, you're working retail with that bank and you're getting retail pricing and you're only working with that bank. And if they say no, you're right back in square one. And they're probably going to ask you for a hard pull. So you've dinged your credit, which is not so fun. So just, there's a lot of different options out there. There are also reverse options for those over 62. There's a lot of misinformation about those. They can be super helpful. I'm always happy to talk more about those. There's an ARV HELOC, which is based upon your as completed value, meaning what the home will be worth once completed. This is a fabulous product for those that don't want to touch the primary mortgage and don't have enough existing equity. You can pull out up to 95% of the as completed value. And what's so important about ADUs is we're really seeing them increase property values anywhere from 18 to 35%. That higher seems to be more like the freestanding ADUs. The lower end of that is more attached ADUs. So you're really getting that return on investment. Building that ADU is giving you that bang for your buck. There are also construction loans out there. They're not my favorite. They can be expensive. I'm happy to dive into that with you if you're interested to learn more. And of course, hey, you never know. You may have a rich uncle or someone that's willing to give you the money or loan you the money. Do know too, with these different types of loans, there are different ways to qualify. There is the standard tax returns, income documentation. There's a lot of out-of-the-box ways to qualify for loans. And where one bank may say no, another bank or many banks may say yes. So if you are in that position where someone's turned you down, do not dismay. Talk to an independent broker. Quickly, as I touch on AB 1033, financing is great, but you do need to contact your lien holder if you are planning on doing any sort of lot split, SB 9, AB 1033. You may not be able to do that. It's going to depend on your lender and the loan that you have, the valuation of the property when splitting. I had a woman contact me just a couple of weeks ago who had already split her lot. A engineer told her it was totally okay to just go ahead and split the lot, and she had done it and not told her bank. And I was like, when did you do this? She said November of 25. I said, you need to do something very soon. That bank's going to find out that you've split that lot, and they're going to come knocking. And not only could they call the mortgage due, I have no idea. There may be a penalty. You know, I don't represent that bank or anything. I don't know. She's not my client, but she went way beyond what she should have done before checking in about financing. One thing I too want to say too with all of these new laws is we are pioneers here. We're all figuring this out together. So having that conversation, the feasibility, figuring it all out, like SB 10 is wonderful, but as you get to a property with more units, that can trigger different loan products. Like there are lenders that will do 1 to 4, that typically is residential. Then there's commercial, which is 5 and above. There are some lenders for investment properties that will go up to 8 units, keeping it residential. But just, you know, whatever your project may be, again, ping people, talk to people, feasibility, have that conversation, know what you're getting into well before you actually break any ground. And cost control, really quickly, how am I on time, Ryan? Okay, thanks. Prefab, manufactured, modular is just hands down a really great way to be building. I build with a prefab wall panel. There are cheaper, faster, and greener ways to build today than stick frame. And that's a whole nother topic, but I do encourage you to think about that. Do be realistic about where you're building. I had someone reach out to me last week. Their hillside's like this. I'm like, that's gonna cost more. It is, you know, where you're building, and then also proximity to your current utilities is going to be a big factor with costs. And finishes. Finishes are a big driver of construction. The more fancy windows and steel and glass and everything, the more it's going to come in. There are definitely ways to cut costs. There's definitely ways to be building like 400 or 600 a square foot roughly, but you have to be super savvy with what you're doing. And again, you know, like construction's not cheap. It's not a cheap date. You're still building a home. If you're doing a freestanding ADU, you are building a home from the ground up. There are not a lot of economies of scale, meaning if you're like, well, I just only want to build 300 square feet, it's actually going to cost just as much, if not more, than if you're doing 800 to 1,000. Every trade goes into the home. You know, you're still putting in tile, everything. So yeah, it costs something for sure. But again, what we're seeing is a really great return on the investment. And as I like to say, it's kind of a win-win-win. You're solving for the housing crisis, you're increasing your property value, and potentially creating some sort of income stream by having a renter there. And that's where I'll leave it.
I love it. That's the exact amount of cynicism. But like, if there was only one thing to take away, it's like, don't assume all the same lending products work for the condo. That third bullet on the like 7th slide, that's very important. And we'll talk more about that in the Q&A. Now the lawyer.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'm the dose of reality. My name's Martin Hirsch. I'm an attorney here locally. I'm a partner at Perry Johnson, Anderson, Miller, and Moskowitz. So what happens if somebody comes into my office and says, I live in an AB 1033 jurisdiction and I want to condominiumize my ADU or build an ADU and condominiumize and sell it? What I'm here to talk about is thank you, the CC&Rs and HOA aspects that's required. So I'm going to borrow from Jen in the other room. Who brought their paddles? No?
Oh, boy.
We'll go by a show of hands. Who loves HOAs? You're a liar. No. I don't know if I can convince you all to agree with her by the end of this. But hopefully, by the end of this, I can get you to say, you know, it's a problem that can be dealt with, or it's something that can be overcome. So what I would tell my client who walks into my office and says, what do I do here? Say, okay, the law requires a couple of things. One is that you have a condo plan that has to be approved and recorded. You have to have CC&Rs. That's that Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. I would help draft that and we would think through it together. You have to form an HOA. Yes, it's just 2 members, but the law requires it. It has to be done. And that HOA has to be governed by California's HOA law called the Davis-Sterling Act, which is literally hundreds of separate laws that we're not going to talk about individually, but conceptually, I'm going to touch on some of the requirements. So I'm telling these people, okay, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is this is kind of overwhelming stuff. The good news is it can be dealt with. So yes, it's overwhelming, but in my view, HOAs can be a good thing if we get past that reputation, right? So I put this picture up. That's kind of our worst case scenario, okay? We're creating a situation now where we have 2 people who are living in close proximity and they need to get along. That's where the CC&Rs come in, right? That's the contract that's going to govern how do we maintain the peace, right? So people don't like HOAs until something goes wrong, right? You have that neighbor that keeps their Christmas lights up too long or leaves their trash cans on the curb or whatever your particular thing is. Okay, so we can deal with that. And so I say, here are some of the benefits of an HOA. And I want to point out this photo, very different from the last one. One of our goals in creating CC&Rs is if this is what you're going to build, how do we maintain that going forward? How do we set these people up who are going to own the units together? How do we put them in a situation where they can govern their properties so that the paint color stays the same and matches, and that beautifully manicured lawn is still taken care of, right? That's where CC&Rs come in, and your HOA isn't such a bad thing. Okay. All right, so this is a little bit of all the things that are required that are going to be dealt with and thought through in our CC&Rs. In most situations, it's somewhat property specific, but in most situations, there are going to be shared elements. That's your common area. Therefore, we're going to have to think through who's responsible for maintaining that. Is it one owner or the other, or is it this homeowners association that we have to create? Should there be restrictions on design or what's sometimes referred to as a architectural control committee. I don't know if you need to go that far, but it should be thought through whether you're going to need to maintain like some symbiosis between the paint colors and the overall aesthetic of the property. I would recommend to any client that comes in is, yes, your CC&Rs do need to address those things. What about use restrictions? And that's kind of the stuff about the Christmas lights and where cars are parked and, you know, annoyances that neighbors can do that that create unhappiness. And then there's the finances of it all, right? So we do, if we have shared elements, we have to make sure that we're caring for those elements. So we're going to have to deal with assessments. How much are those assessments? What's reasonable? You have to set reserves. So that's just in the CC&Rs. And then on the Davis Sterling side, there's an open meeting requirement. There has to be meetings that are agendized and noticed ahead of time. There are fiduciary duties that are owed to one another. So this all starts to sound, again, pretty overwhelming. Thank you. Bear with me.
Even the slideshow got overwhelmed.
I know. It can happen quickly.
Just wait till you hear the Texas lawyer. She's like, whatever.
Yeah. California is a very different state. So, okay, thank you. All of this starts to sound like, geez, there could be a lot of liability here. That's what, you know, as a lawyer, I'm going to have to warn my client, it's possible, right? You could breach your fiduciary duties. There could be accusations of that sort of thing. The Davis Sterling Act itself has civil penalties if you violate things like the Open Meeting Act. So if you hold a meeting with less than 4 days notice, you can have a civil penalty imposed of a couple $100. So maybe you're sitting in my office and you take a step back and say, is this really right for me? Well, the reality of it is, if one of these two owners, who's one of the two members of the Homeowners Association, feels like it's a good idea to sue the HOA, they're really suing themselves. I think that, so practically speaking, it seems unlikely. Can I guarantee that it won't happen? No. But again, it seems very unlikely that there's going to be a lawsuit against the Homeowners Association for non-compliance with Davis Sterling. And one would hope there would be an agreement or understanding between the owners that maybe we don't have to kill ourselves with all this compliance if we can get along and follow our own rules. And the good news is there's no such thing as HOA jail, okay? So outside of these two owners who are the members of the Homeowners Association and its board of directors, there's not some other agency that goes around enforcing compliance with the Davis Sterling Act. Okay, so how do we make this work? Point number one is, as I say, sharing is not caring. If we can keep our common elements to a minimum, that will make our CC&Rs a bit less complex because it's less shared expense, it's less overall cooperation. And again, we're thinking about not just getting to the point of sale, we're thinking well past that. How do we keep the peace in perpetuity? So if we have shared walls, shared roofs, shared driveways, shared utilities, those are all really areas for conflict as I see it. It can be dealt with in the CC&Rs, but to the extent that we can minimize sharing, it will make the arrangement simpler. And of course, that's property specific, right? Every property is different. So just high level view or, okay.
You got 1 minute. Close it out.
Yeah, so you need a board of directors. I'm just gonna fly through this. Let's see. This is really, I think what I would focus on is what your CC&Rs need, in my opinion. You should have architectural controls, so some restrictions on what the property should look like and how that should be maintained over time. General kind of catch-all provisions require that each owner follow state and local laws. You'd be surprised how just a broad statement like that in your CC&Rs can be used to stop annoying behaviors. The same with an anti-nuisance provision. Nuisances are like annoying behaviors, loud, obnoxious noises and odors and things like that. Have an anti-nuisance provision, kind of a catch-all. Again, use restrictions for those specific, bring your trash cans in on time, take your Christmas lights down, don't block my driveway or my side of the driveway, or however that's gonna work. And then a matrix that explains the maintenance responsibilities. And those are really the elements that I think are absolutely required to make this this situation work. So hopefully not quite as overwhelming.
It was perfect. It was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always hard asking a lawyer, like, don't scare him too much. But that's why we got Tom Tran now. He's gonna tell you what it really looks like.
Now we get to share you the real story. So that's to scare you away. So now I'm gonna try to unscare you in the next 10 minutes. So can we jump into the slide? And then my name is Tom Tran. I just came from San Jose, so 2-hour drive to came here and shared you the good news that it's possible. So that's the key takeaway I want to share with you today, that it's very possible. There are a lot of ways you can do this. You don't have to do this with just AB 1033. So we're going to share with you all the strategies that we did as real estate developers. My background is I'm a real estate agent, so I'm always promoting housing, homeownership. And then I shift into the real estate development space because I feel like we can make a difference, even if it's just with one house at a time, or 2 houses, or eventually one day, a couple thousand houses at a time. So let's say if everyone here built an ADU just from today, that's another 100 houses for somebody, right? So we could make an impact, and it's very possible. So I'm gonna combine SB 9 and AB 1033 together because it goes hand in hand, but we don't have a lot of time. So I'm gonna browse through SB 9 really, really quickly, and I'm gonna share with you why that ties in together in a little bit. So with SB 9, anyone heard about SB 9? You can raise your hand. Yeah, most of you, good. Yeah, SB 9, you can basically split your lots in half, all right? 60-40 rule. So we love SB 9. Where can you do SB 9? Basically anywhere. And I just have a simple rule for SB 9. It's a cow rule. Do you have cows on your houses, in your land? Yes, then you probably can't do SB 9. If you don't, then you can do SB 9. You just can't do it in rural areas. So look for cows, that's about it. So no historicals, but that changed recently. Now you can do historical. So a lot of houses in Napa, Sonoma. I bought a house in Napa that was historical. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even change the window, even though it broke. So historical is a huge problem, but not anymore for SB 9. So it's great. So things are changing. Things are improving, making it easier and easier for these housing to come up. And thanks to Casita Coalition, I actually follow them. They have the latest updates on all the laws. There's so many laws. SB 9, SB 10. I thought SB 10, you can split your lot into 3 lots, but it's something different. SB 10 is you can build up to 10 units. I just learned that today. So SB 9, you can split up your lots to build another house and build another ADU. So it's gonna all tie together in a little bit. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because it's a lot of little technical information. Our goal today is to talk about AB 1033. AB 1033. So most of you heard about AB 1033 all day today. You wanna hear about how you're gonna do it. So I'm curious, how many of you here built an ADU? 2, 3, 4. So we can actually do 4 AB 1033s today. Yeah, follow me. So we're gonna do 4 AB 1033s today. So these are the cities that we did SB9, but I'm gonna jump to the AB 1033. But I just want to brag really quickly. Is it okay to brag really quickly?
Really quick.
Really quick. So after 10, California, what is the average price point? 6 million, 10 million. And after you split the lot in after 10, but let me rewind a little bit. How big is the average lot in after 10?
Of course.
1 acre. 1 acre. Average lot in after 10 is 1 acre. So we did the first lot split after 10, got half an acre and half acre. Now average value is 6 to 10 million. How much is that lot worth? Maybe half because it's just the land, but it's still worth 6 to 10 million. Yes, maybe yeah, because it's very expensive. Yeah, so we split the lot in half. We created value in after 10. Very first SB9 case. So a lot of people are saying, oh, what if your city doesn't allow it? Most cities will start to allow it because it's a state rule. Los Altos as well. We're the first one in Los Altos to split SB9. So, okay, no more bragging. So I'm sorry?
Show me the condo.
Oh, condo, yeah, let me show you the condo. You guys came here for the condo. What is AB 1033? You learned about that already? I don't need to explain too much about what is AB 1033. In San Jose, they adopted AB 1033 to be the first city in California. And these are the 3 applicants that applied. We applied, another builder applied, and one more builder applied. Who got the first one approved? I think we did, yeah. So we got the first one approved. We were racing with another builder because he built one already. He applied. We were racing side by side to see who can get it first. And luckily, we got approved first. So we got our very first AB 1033 approved. I want to show you. I'm going to skip to the ADU and the story behind it. So you can actually Google this, 410 Josefa in San Jose. We picked up this rental property. It had a single family, small, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 6K lots. Back in 2021, when houses were a little bit lower, we picked it up for, I think, $750. The rental, we didn't plan to get into ADU space. And then ADU's laws passed, so we built an ADU behind it. It's small, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 750 square feet. How much would that cost to build? ADU builders here, 750 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. 200K? Yeah, 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 300 with utilities and all that. Yeah, we're building in the Bay Area. In San Jose, we're building 300 square feet. But we'll talk about that later. So we built this around 200 to 250 utility connection. You add it all together, it could be 300. It could be 300 to build this little ADU. And we got the first one approved. And how do we do that? How do we do that is because a couple of factors to this. One is the lien going back to the lender. You have to notify your lender that you're going to do this and intend to sell it because that affects their loan. So luckily we have a lot of equity, so we can do it, and the lender didn't mind, right? But if we don't have much equity in the house, the lender might not sign off on splitting the ADU. So we had a little bit of equity. It's not a lot, a couple $100K. So we got the lender approval, and then we did the condo map with the land survey. It could be a land surveyor or it could be a civil engineer. They can also do that as well. So how much would that cost to do your condo map? Any guess how much would that cost? 5 to 10 grand. Yeah, I love that response because everything in construction is 5 to 10,000. No, it's true. It's actually very true. How much is a paint job? 5 to 10 grand. How much is landscaping? 5 to 10 grand. It's actually true. I strongly believe in that. How much does an architect cost? Architects here. Some of them 5 to 10 grand. If it's simple, if it's complicated, maybe 10 to 20. Civil engineer, how much would they cost? 5 to 10 grand. It's about there. It's about there for a good baseline.
How much for the lawyer?
How much for the lawyer? 5 to 10 grand. That's about right. See, 5 to 10 grand. So if you have 5 to 10 grand, you can do this. I strongly believe in you. You can do it. But first, you have to build it, which you can get a loan through the loan officers, get different type of loans, and then you can build it. I want to share with you the other builder. Oh, we're still on the market. We haven't sold it yet because it's
Pull out
such.
your phone, bid now. I take 3%.
Yeah, Ryan's our real estate agent. Yeah, it's still on the market because it's such a new concept that we have to explain to buyers what it is, and we're on a busy street, so there's a lot of commercial. It's kind of an ugly street, to be honest, but it's affordable. It's only 600K. That's affordable for San Jose. Yeah, that's affordable for San Jose. Most houses are 1.5, like this guy. See, so this is the other builder that built their ADU, and then this is where SB9 is gonna come in the whole picture. So this builder built his ADU next to his big house. It's on a corner lot. So just visualize a corner lot. There's one house on the right. There's one house on the left. The left house is the ADU. How big is it again? 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Yeah. So imagine an ADU, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet. That's like a house, right? That's a good size, right? That's most people's house. So he did the same thing. He applied for AB 1033. So let's pause for a second. Why did he apply for AB 1033 versus SB 9 lot split? He had the perfect quarter lot split to do SB 9. Why did he do AB 1033? It costs more. It could cost more. It could cost more because everything's 5 to 10,000. Yeah, it could cost more with SB 9 because yes, owner occupancy rule. So SB 9, you have to keep one of the two for 3 years. However, with AB 1033, you can sell both right away. So this builder sold both right away. 3 million and then 1.5. How much is that? It's a lot of millions, more than I have. That's a lot of millions. So let's think about this. As an investment, as a development, it makes sense, right? How much does it cost to build 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet? ADU builder. It depends, but let's say average. The lowest price you can do. Yeah, 350 square feet times 1,200 square feet will be about 450. Let's say 500K. 500K to build this ADU, and he sold it for 1.5. Is that a good investment? It's not bad. Not bad. $1 million. That's not bad. Who wants an extra $1 million?
Yeah, well, more affordable than the next property.
Yeah, so it's a great investment, and I think it's a great way to provide housing. So once again, 1.5 is average in San Jose. So we just provided housing for 2 families in San Jose. So going back to AB 1033 and SB 9, a lot of cities don't allow AB 1033. So that's why we have these educational events to share with you that we should push for it. Otherwise, your next best option is to do SB 9 to do what? SB 9 to do what? To build the ADU and then SB 9. Yeah, so a big question people ask us is, what if my city doesn't allow AB 1033? What else can I do? You can do SB 9. So going back to SB 9. So this is another case where a homeowner built an ADU in Santa Clara. This was way before AB 1033. He just wanted an ADU for extra space, rental income. He built an ADU. It's small. It's only like 3-bedroom, 1-bath. And then he built the ADU. And then he couldn't do AB 1033, so he opted to do SB 9. So he split the lot. It's a nice lot. I'm gonna go back real quick. It's a nice lot right there. So, if you see the image, it's kind of like a corner. ADUs on the left, houses on the right. Guess how much he sold this one for? 1.5. Another 1.5 for an ADU SB 9 lot split. So these are high prices because it's Bay Area. I'm running out of time. I got 1 minute. I'm gonna talk until they pull the plug. So I'm gonna run right through. So it's very possible to build ADUs but you can implement AB 1033. It's too new. Most cities haven't adopted it unless you move to Sebastopol. How far is that from here? Very close, 5 to 10 minutes. Everything's 5 to 10 minutes.
Go Condo, man.
Yes. You can build there and sell it, or you can do SB9 if you're in Napa, Sonoma, or any other area. You can do SB9. So there's ways around it. But first step, build your ADU. Call Matt right now, 50% off as of today. So Matt will build the ADU, and then you can think of ways to sell it if you want to sell it. So while you want to sell it, you're creating home ownership for the next person. So that's our ultimate goal. Our goal is to build 1,000 of these homes for everyone here. Everyone's gonna have one. You get one, you get one.
Got a house. No.
Everyone get a free ADU today. Thank you. Thank you.
Tom he can obviously talk about a lot of different combos. It's a very interesting project to follow. But we got to make time for Julie because she lives in the land of thousands of condo ADUs. This is what the future could look like. Julie, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. So I'm here to give you some inspiration from Texas. I'm going to start with the lay of the land in Texas. So in Texas, and a little bit about me, I've done probably 3,000 of these ADU condos over the past 20 plus years. So it's really all I do and all I think about every day. And most of my clients are builders, and I would say maybe 20% homeowners. So in Texas, condos are an entitlement under state law, and that we have the same rules, the property code section for residential, commercial, any number of units. So what I've spent my career thinking about is how to use these laws creatively for 2-unit projects. In Texas, if you are located in a city, there is no city control of the condo docks or the way you divide it. That's great because you can get around sort of internal setbacks and things that happen with subdivision. We also have a lot of cities with very flexible building codes that allow for very often detached units. In Austin, now we actually have, and this makes me a little sad, we don't use the word ADU anymore. We just have a dwelling unit, and we have 3 units by right per lot. And in San Antonio, very often, I mostly do 3 to 4 unit projects. So the numbers over my career, all I did was 2 units at the beginning, but now we're seeing that increase. The conversion to condos does not trigger any physical changes to the property if you have an existing structure. A tool that I use very often, and I do large projects too. So if you think about large projects are often built in phases. I started using that tool for folks in Austin who wanted to sell their backyards. So kind of backyard condos. So very often we will reserve the development right for the future building of a unit. So this gives them, when they can't get the financing or any permits in Austin take a really long time, they can oftentimes just sell that backyard to a builder who's going to undertake all of that development work. And often it pays off their mortgage or allows them to refinance it at a much lower principal. Our property code also allows flexibility in the drafting of documents. And I'm going to get into that. It's super important because I think, in Texas, we have rules too. And I think I joke about it a lot and say Texas is very much the Wild West of condo conversions. And it is, but it's also creatively thinking about those rules. So it's interesting listening to Martin talk because we have a lot of those same rules. They're not as onerous for sure. But for example, when I approach a project like this one on the screen, I really have kind of a come to Jesus with the developers about, especially if it's a developer who likes HOAs and has used them in their projects before. I will say the majority of my clients come to me and they don't want an HOA as much as buyers don't want an HOA, right? So then we can really scale it back. But very rarely do I include architectural control, even in attached units. It's just one more thing for owners to fight about. It's really the developers needing to give up that control of, I always say it's like, how important is it for you to drive by this project in 10 years and have it look the same? If it's really important, sure, we can put that in there, but I guarantee buyers aren't going to want it. And usually it ends up coming back out before closing. I also think about, where do we have to have assessments? And this is where the flexibility in drafting comes in. So for example, the more I can define as part of the unit rather than part of a shared area, then we can get rid of assessments for that. That gets rid of arguments, that gets rid of future problems, that helps improve liability protection for the developer or the seller. Also really think through, from a business code perspective, where can I boil down the HOA? Like, what meetings can we get rid of meetings? What meetings have to be required? And then as far as like rules and regulations, the CC&Rs don't get rid of city code and city code enforcement of rules that every single family house has. So these are, I always say, you have the city code rules, but this is additional restrictions. So most people come to me, and especially buyers, they're like, I wish this was a house. I wish this wasn't a condo. So I don't want any additional rules. I usually fall somewhere in the middle in most of my projects, where I'll say, some things preserve property values, like Martin said, cars in the front yard. But oftentimes we don't restrict a lot of things that a lot of HOAs do. We could go on to the next slide. So structuring the condo regime is super important. Most of my projects I do is what I would call a site condominium. That's a federal lending term. But when I talk about a site condominium, what I'm talking about is, sorry, I just had a moment that I was worried my mic wasn't on, but it is. So when I think of a site condominium, I think of really trying to make everything part of the unit. And so the definition of the unit would not be sheetrock in, or even studs in, or exterior walls in. It would be a box, kind of a 3D box that includes from the surface of the ground up to some height, usually like 100 feet, and then a box. And so everything in that box is part of the unit. And very often the lot is all unit. So it's just two boxes, right? And you can't do that if you have a shared driveway, but if you have separate driveways, like in this project on the screen, this had no common elements, no general common elements. That's what the terms we use in Texas, or no limited common elements. There's no common elements at all. And most of my projects, we can get very close to that, if not to that. And if there's a shared driveway, that's hardscaped. So there's very little maintenance. At least there's not regular recurring maintenance. There might be repairs in the future that would be a special assessment, but that doesn't trigger us needing to have monthly dues. So other structure things that are super important would be maintenance. We try to separate that as much as possible, both for structures and for yards. The majority of my projects have no dues. And that is also because we're able to get separate insurance policies. So for a project like this, it would just be a single family home policy. For an attached unit, it would be like a single family attached or a townhome policy. Those are providing lower cost and better coverage right now than master policies. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, how are ADU condos helping in Texas? By and large, the back units, the smaller units, sell first. So there's a huge demand in Texas for these additional units. They're a lower price point. Developers have gotten really good at making them feel like a home. Even when we don't have restrictions on square footage anymore in Austin, but we used to be limited to 850 square feet, and then it went up to 1,100. Now the restriction is gone. So I think the evolution of Austin code is really interesting to show what's possible. It's like, as these became more popular, the city started allowing them to be built more like homes. It allows families to live together on a lot, but have different financing or the ability to sell. It keeps a neighborhood feel. We go on to the last slide. So listening to you guys talk, I'm kind of reminded about when I did my first ADU condo in 2003. And at that time, I felt like my job pretty much consisted of trying to get other people to believe that this was possible. I spent the majority of my day talking to title companies and talking to lenders and trying to convince them that yes, this is allowed and we can do this. And it's great to see those other parties that are involved in the process really catch up with what the market was demanding. And some of the improvements that I think are really helping in Texas is local building codes. They're just across the board making it easier to build additional units and ADUs. I have noticed the partial release or approval process from existing mortgage companies seems to be getting better and better. And it used to be that certain national banks, I would hear their name and I would just say, this is just not going to happen. But now, I work with a lot of the large institutional banks, and sometimes the process is onerous, but there is a process, which is an improvement. And some of them are names that you would think would be really complicated are actually pretty easy. So that's been a big change in my career. Local and state banks and credit unions have always been easier in the partial release or consent for the condo conversion, but they're just getting better and better. And I think there's so many easier buyer financing options under current Freddie and Fannie rules. And I've seen that go up and down, restrict and loosen over the course of my career. But right now we're in a loosening. And that's been great to see too. So I'm going to come in under time for question and answers, Ryan.
You're my hero. Okay, a lot of you have done the right thing, handed questions in. If anybody wants question cards, raise your hand now and I will run around. And while I'm doing that, you have a question already written? Cool. Hand that up and please. And then Scott, why don't you start with the one I handed you from the audience? What's the ADU Center for San Francisco? Oh, sorry. Here, let me get you the mic.
Preserve my precious voice. The question is, what is the equivalent of the ADU Center in places like San Francisco or Los Angeles? And the answer is short, there isn't any. We were the first. There was nobody doing what we were doing for the first 4 years of our existence. And one thing that we've been working towards after working in Napa and Sonoma and Marin is being able to take on more areas. And that's something that we've just started to launch this last month is we have our one-on-one consultations are now available to anybody who wants to sign up for them. And we've recently just started a what we call our ADU Ready program for people who have financing or in process, but still want some support. They don't have to be in Marin or Napa. They can join our program and it's like a peer support program with our ADU expert to help them through their project, because we find that people just need a second opinion, a third opinion, a gut check about how their project is going. I think San Francisco and Los Angeles should have ADU centers. The San Mateo chose to build one. And so they took our model and stood one up down there. I think it's probably no secret to those who know me, like my ultimate dream is that we have an ADU center capability and funding to cover all 9 counties of the Bay Area, because housing is regional and every homeowner in California needs this kind of help. So some cities like Healdsburg, San Francisco will have things that do help homeowners early process, but there isn't anybody else like us or San Mateo.
It's him. It's
me.
him.
It's me.
Go promote yourself, man.
Yeah.
It's him.
It's me. San Francisco, call me.
In the back too. Like they're staffing up. There's 2 of them. They could do the whole state. Sylvia, take the mic. Tell us about how to advocate. We got a local staff member in the audience.
So this question is from a staffer at a local jurisdiction. They want to introduce AB 1033 to the Planning Commission. How to navigate bringing up controversial policy when there may be little interest. So this is a great question. At Casita Coalition, we've heard from quite a few county and city staffers with the same exact issue. And what we've done is we meet with them and sort of get a lay of the land of what sort of the pushback is. Obviously, each jurisdiction would have different concerns. Some of the things we've heard of are lack of staff capacity or just not understanding what the impact would be for staff. Another issue is cities with strong tenant protections, so trying to balance that. But what we encourage is, again, to identify if there's any local organization like Gen H. Gen H did a fantastic job with getting it opted in Sebastopol. And if there's not any resources like that in your local area, you can reach out to Casita Coalition and we'll identify some people who can be allies in your city or county. And we can also speak with members of your city or county about opting in and addressing some of those much needed concerns. We've also met with different states who are interested in carrying similar bills in their state. So we're here as a resource. So I'd like to connect with whoever asks this question so that we can connect and provide any support for you.
Started with softball. The answer is her. The answer is Casita Coalition. I think, Lindsay, I don't even know what this card says because it's all in finance. Did you figure out what you're asking?
Yeah, well, I think so. It's not necessarily posed as a question, but I think I'm understanding what they're asking. And is basically, are the loans maybe that I do or the loans that are available, are they sold to Fannie, Freddie, or are they portfolio loans? And that just, I'm an independent broker, so it just depends on the type of loan that you're doing and what lender it is. There's nothing to really panic about it. If your loan, if you get one of those letters in the mail saying that you've got a different servicer or your loan has been sold, it's just how the mortgage market works. Everything still stays the same with your mortgage, so there's nothing to be concerned about in any way.
And the standards keep changing. Fannie's changing it at the end of the month. They're doing up to 3 ADUs now, right?
Yep.
Start. So you got to follow these people. The answer is talk to Lindsay. This is so easy. Man, Martin, hit us. You got a lawyer question. I got one for you, Julie, too. I'll read it to you.
Okay. The question is, I've been involved in small subdivisions with HOA and condo provisions. Incredibly complex, time consuming, seems unlikely that this can work for individuals without simplifying and simplification of the templates. Comments? Yeah, I think there are some challenges. It would be great to see an exception in Davis Sterling for associations that have fewer than 10 members. I represent associations of 6 homes. It's really, the law was written for big cities like Oakmont with, I don't know, over 4,000 units that need open meetings the same way the Brown Act requires and everything else that goes along with it. Davis Sterling, yeah. But I think the answer in one way that this does work and can be simplified is, this goes back to my sharing is not caring slide. And one of the slides that Julie showed us with the project that she was involved in, where there were separate driveways, the buildings didn't touch. And if you can eliminate those common elements, you really do reduce the need for overcomplicated CC&Rs and reserves and assessments and that kind of thing. So there is a way, it's somewhat property specific, but if that design can be achieved, the process really can be much more simple, all the way down to having just one meeting a year.
Forgot to tell him the answer is hire a lawyer.
And come talk to me.
All right, so, this is a good segue for Tom's question too.
All right. Question is, what are the utility implications of ADU condos? So ADUs, most cities require separate utilities, so that's a good thing, right? Separate PG&E, separate water, separate sewer. Sometimes you can connect it together, but even PG&E is imposing separate meters themselves. So how much does it cost for a separate PG&E meter?
Okay.
No, double that. For the utility connection, everything is 10 to 20K. So how much does it cost for a separate PG&E? 10 to 20K at a minimum. How much does it cost for a separate water line? 10 to 20K at a minimum. How much does it cost for a separate sewer line? 10 to 20K at a minimum. Depends how far you are. But the only thing you can't connect is the access point in the front, but you need separate lines overall. So it could add up. So just that utility separate connection is 50K, right? So everything adds up. That's on top of your ADU build costs. So it adds up. It could be expensive, but is it worth it? That's the number one question. Is it worth it in the end? I think so. If you can double the value, let's say your build cost is 200 to 300 or even 400, that ADU could be worth at least 600, 700, 800, right? Yeah.
And so I'm gonna ask Julie. Actually, Julie, do you have anything to add to either of those two questions? Otherwise, I'll ask you year round.
I would just say about utilities is an issue for us here. Water taps cost over $50,000 in Austin per tap. So that's a really common question for my developers, and most have started using sub-meters. I don't know if that's an option there, but that is what a lot of projects use that are at a lower price point in Austin.
Okay. And then just for this is a really, they're asking for a nonprofit. If the nonprofit owns the land, but this could be true about any homeowner, and utilizes a ground lease model of deed, does the nonprofit have to participate in an HOA that's created for a condoization? Does that make sense? Riff on it. we stumped her.
Oh, you're asking? Yeah, I thought that was going to Martin. Martin.
No, well, either way. Any takers? Martin will charge us.
I rarely see that structure, and I've seen it maybe
Okay.
once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally different structure. Yeah. So with a ground lease, it's a different structure that doesn't contemplate fee ownership between two different owners. So I think the answer is no, if I'm understanding correctly.
In the early days, when you evaluate a project, a lot of the time you should be like, no, because we're still just trying to find these perfect projects, right? Where completely separate units, completely nothing shared, no giant reserve, no big insurance policy, no worry about who's going to fix the roof or who's going to take the trash out, right? When you got two full detached units with their own access to the right of way and like a fence, big fence, great HOA, right? That's the takeaway. It's over and over. All right. I'm just going to start reading these. Appraisals. Who wants to talk about how appraisers should think about comps and condo ADUs in particular? Lindsay.
About that, sure. I mean, appraisers, it's subjective, right? When you're having an appraisal, you don't get to pick your appraiser. It's assigned through a lender. So you are at the whim of them. I have fought appraisal valuations and won. I've fought appraisal valuations and lost. So, it's something like I always err on the cautious side, the conservative side, and I'd much rather be pleasantly surprised. But we are seeing, 18 to 35% increase in home values. Again, like I said earlier, the higher end of that is more freestanding ADUs. The lower is more attached or JDUs.
I have a slight, I'll do the other take on it from like markets like Seattle and Austin that are more mature. A lot of the time, realtors stop putting ADU in the listing. They just, it's a condo listing and that's what it is. And they all kind of start understanding what it means. And eventually the market develops and you end up seeing what the comps are for a condoed property versus a non-condo map property. And it tends to be, don't quote me on this, ask your appraiser, but like it tends to be 30% under the comp that's on a single family lot. That's exactly what we saw, that slide you showed us on Lance. That one, those 3 2s in San Jose go for 1.92 million, but because it's a condo map, that 3 2 is going for 1.6. So hopefully that, yeah. Another good question, how do we actually get affordability out of this? Maybe that's because, you know, we looked at a 1.6 million example. I did just, you know, there's that 30% fork, but that's still not that's not like pocket change. Yeah.
I'll jump in this one because I think about this a lot. So thank you. Affordable is going to happen in a couple different ways. One is the ADU market is building homes that the larger construction market will not build. They're smaller, they're integrated into the environment, and not only do they tend to be more affordable from a cost, an actual buy perspective or a cost to build perspective or a sales perspective, they also tend to be a little bit less for rental over time. What we see is that like a really nice detached ADU for rent, it may be at market price or slightly above market for a similar square footage in an apartment building. But when people find their tenant that they love, they keep that rent flat. And so what starts out as, you know, maybe 80% AMI affordable within 5 years could be extremely affordable record because all rents have gone up except for the people who love their tenant in their ADU. And that's what we see as the most common outcome. So there are a couple of myths that we always see is like, oh, only rich people are building these. They're building them for pool houses. These are the most expensive pool houses you could possibly build. With a kitchen and bathroom, yeah. And they're not affordable. Well, they may not be very low affordable now, but 5 years from now, you now have them in the built environment, and they're likely to be extremely affordable in a very short period of time. So affordability is developed. We can't build, we don't have the resources, the money, the public funds, the companies to build all the affordable housing we need today. We need to build it now and let it grow into affordability over time.
Julie, really fast, because we're coming down a little wire. What if an ADU is already within an existing HOA? Can you HOA in an HOA, like infinite bag of holding?
Wait, say that. Is the HOA a what?
If you're already in an HOA.
Oh, yeah. You can have a master HOA. So, and sometimes, so you just, if the master HOA does not prohibit the condo regime, then you can do it under an existing HOA.
But that's like crazy.
It happens, you know, it does happen. It happens, you know,
Wild.
probably 10% of my projects or so.
It happens. It exists. All right. There's 2 questions about, are there more restrictions on these for like short-term rental? And basically, I'll just say the ADU state code is pretty clear that cities can prohibit the use of short-term rental under 30 days. And there's a good argument for saying that that still applies even if you condoize. But, you know, watch this space. Then the last one that we can have time for, if there are multiple units per parcel, are cities adopting overlays, or ODSs was on the card, but like different ways to look at their single family zoning? And are those helpful or a hindrance? I have a hindrance answer, but does anybody have it?
I mean, I'll jump in on that because I talk with the cities a lot. I think, you know, it's going to become one of those things where, you know, single family homes, single family zoning is going to mean 4 units or 5 units. Like that's, I think the definition is just going to change. And it's going to be this vestigial single family home concept that doesn't really exist in law anymore.
Yeah. So, and you do see this, but it's usually the bad kind. So like Jen said, nobody's used SB 10, which is technically, San Francisco tried to use SB 10 right away to get out of the upzoning from SB 9. So they like tried to put in an SB 10 overlay to avoid all of the projects that could be SB 9. And we see a lot of overlays like that. And not saying that staff don't sometimes adopt positive overlays, but it is a tricky situation. Highly recommend working with groups like Casita Coalition, groups like the ADU Center, to think about, am I an accidental NIMBY with this overlay, or am I actually promoting affordable housing and housing production? Does that make sense? All right. If you did not get your question answered, because there are 2 very good, one's very funny, and then one is very like, we could change a lot of lives. They're both about Lindsay. So go talk to her. Because I think, like, are we pretty much ready in the other room? All right. If there's any closing remarks, you can ask a question aloud. These 2, you're going to talk to Lindsay. They're going to come talk to you later. You're gonna build a lot of housing with. Well, then, if you want me to keep going, or are you ready? Tiny? They're ready. All right. Round of applause. Thank you all so much for contributing all this knowledge and for doing the things you do. It's been wonderful. Everybody, yay! Let's transition.